The stars had never felt so cold to Ambassador Yunhana as they did on that day. She stood at the window of the Galactic Concord station, watching the endless darkness of space, and she felt something break inside her chest. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was something far more dangerous. It was the death of hope. For 80 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Concord. 80 years of smiling at aliens who looked at humans like they were dirt. 80 years of bowing and nodding and saying yes, we understand when they were told to stay small, stay quiet, stay in their corner of the galaxy. Hannah had spent 30 of those years as a diplomat. She had shaken hands with creatures that had no hands. She had learned 12 alien languages. She had done everything right, and none of it mattered. 3 days ago, the Concord had passed the containment accord. The vote was not even close. 1,047 species voted yes. 12 voted no. Humanity was now limited to only 12 star systems. They could not expand. They could not grow. They were to remain small forever, but that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened at the border. Hannah closed her eyes and saw the faces of the dead. 4,200 humans, men, women, children. They had been on colony ships, traveling to new worlds that humanity had legally claimed. The Valori patrol fleet had stopped them. They had demanded the ships turn back. When the ships refused, the Valori opened fire. No warning shots. No negotiation. Just fire and death and silence. Among the dead were 216 children. The youngest was 8 months old. Her name was Kim Yuna. Hannah had seen her picture in the reports. A small face with round cheeks and bright eyes that would never open again. The door behind her opened. Her assistant, a young man named Shindoan, stepped inside. His face was pale. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "the summit is about to begin. They are waiting for you." Hannah did not turn around. "Did they send any response to our formal complaint?" "Yes." Doan's voice was tight. The Valori High Speaker said the deaths were regrettable but necessary. He said humans should learn to follow rules. Hannah's hands curled into fists at her sides. She took a slow breath, then another. She turned and walked past Dohan without a word. The grand chamber of the Galactic Concord was enormous. It was built to hold representatives from over 1,000 species. Floating platforms rose in circles around a central stage, each one carrying diplomats from different worlds. The ceiling was made of transparent crystal, showing the stars above. It was meant to remind everyone of the vastness of the galaxy and the smallness of their conflicts. Today, it only reminded Hannah how alone humanity was. She walked to the central platform. Around her, aliens of every shape and size watched. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had bodies made of light or shadow or things she could not name. Most of them looked at her with bored eyes. A few smiled with too many teeth. None of them cared about dead human children. At the highest platform sat the leaders of the Concord. The Valori High Speaker, Lord Moroth, was a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms. He wore robes of deep purple, the color of royalty among his people. His eyes were black and cold. Like the space between stars, next to him sat Archon Salaith of the Kreth Assembly, a being that looked like a mantis made of black metal. And beside Salith sat Keeper Nollis of the Haven Collective, an ancient creature whose body was mostly hidden beneath a hooded cloak. Only his 6 golden eyes were visible, and they watched Hannah with something that might have been sadness. "A representative of Earth may speak," announced the automated system. Hannah stood tall. Her voice was calm and clear. 3 days ago, 4,200 of my people were killed. They were civilians. They were families. They were children. Oh, she paused. I am here to demand justice.
Silence.
Then, slowly, a sound began to rise from the platforms around her. Laughter. It started with the Valori delegation and spread to the Kreth, then to dozens of other species. They laughed at her. They laughed at the dead. They laughed at humanity. Lord Moroth raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter faded. He leaned forward, and when he spoke, His voice was like ice. Justice. He made the words sound like a joke. You come here and speak of justice? Your people broke the law. They tried to expand beyond their permitted space. They were warned. They did not listen. He spread his arms wide. The Vellery fleet did what was necessary. If humans cannot follow simple rules, perhaps they are not ready to be part of this concord at all. More murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Hannah felt her heart pounding, but her face remained still. We claimed those systems legally, under the old treaties. The containment accord was passed after our ships launched. You changed the rules, and then punished us for not following them. Lord Morth smiled. It was not a kind smile. Rules change, little human. The strong decide what is legal. The weak obey. He leaned back in his seat. Your species has been part of this concord for 80 years. And in that time, you have shown nothing but ambition and arrogance. You breed too fast. You expand too quickly. You ask too many questions. His black eyes narrowed. You are insects playing at civilization. And insects should know their place. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Hannah stood frozen. Around her, 1,000 species laughed and pointed and mocked. 80 years of diplomacy. 80 years of patience. 80 years of hope that one day humanity would be accepted. All of it was a lie. She looked up at Lord Morth. She looked at his cold eyes and his cruel smile. And something inside her changed forever. Slowly, deliberately. She reached up and removed the diplomatic sash from her shoulder. It was blue and white. The colors of United Earth. She had worn it with pride for 30 years. She dropped it on the floor. The laughter stopped. You will regret this, Hannah said. Her voice was quiet, but somehow it carried to every corner of the chamber. All of you. You will regret this. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the aliens watched in confusion. Some whispered to each other. What did that mean? Was it a threat? How could one small human threaten the entire concord? Lord Morth laughed one more time. Let her go, he said. What can humans do? They are nothing. Keeper Nahlis did not laugh. His 6 golden eyes watched Hannah's retreating figure, and deep in his ancient mind, felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. He had studied humans. He had read their history. He knew what they were capable of when pushed too far. He tried to speak. He tried to warn them, but no one was listening, and far away on a blue and green planet called Earth, Admiral Park Tae received a message from Ambassador Yoon Hana. It contained only 4 words. It is time. Admiral Park Tae read the message 3 times. Then he picked up his communicator and spoke to his fleet commanders across 100 star systems. Begin preparations, he said. Iron Wake is active. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake, and it did not even know it yet. The United Terran Parliament building stood in the heart of Seoul, megacity like a monument to human survival. It was made of white stone and dark steel, and its towers reached toward the sky like fingers trying to touch the stars. For 200 years, humanity had gathered here to make its most important decisions. Today would be the most important of all. President Beekjina walked through the corridors with steady steps. She was 54 years old, with silver streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen too much. She had been president for 6 years, and in that time, she had smiled and nodded at alien diplomats just like all the presidents before her. She had played the game. She had kept the peace. But peace had a price, and that price had become too high. General Choi Soon-woo walked beside her. He was a large man with a scarred face and hands that had once pulled triggers. Now those hands held data pads and war plans. He had spent 40 years preparing for this day, hoping it would never come, knowing it would. The chamber is full, Sun-woo said quietly. Every representative is present. The broadcast systems are ready. When you speak, the entire galaxy will hear. Gina nodded. In the fleet. Admiral Park Tae reports all ships are in position. Iron Wake can begin within 6 hours of your command. They stopped at the great doors of the Parliament chamber. Gina looked at her general. 40 years, she said softly. 40 years of building in secret. 40 years of lies and hidden shipyards and pretending to be weak. Are we ready, Sunwoo? Truly ready? Sunwoo met her eyes. We have 800 capital ships, 3,000 support vessels, 12 million soldiers, and weapons the galaxy has never seen. Paused. We are ready. The question is, are they? Gina almost smiled. Almost. No, she said. They are not. The doors opened and she walked into the chamber. The parliament was full of voices, but they fell silent the moment she appeared. 2,000 representatives from every nation on Earth sat in rising rows around the central platform. Their faces were tired and angry and scared. They had all seen the footage of the destroyed colony ships. They had all heard Lord Morith's words. Insects, he had called them. Insects. Gina walked to the podium and looked out at her people. Behind her, a massive screen showed the blue and green globe of Earth floating in space. Their home. The only home they had ever known. My fellow humans, she began. 3 days ago, 4,200 of our brothers and sisters were murdered. They were not soldiers. They were not criminals. They were families looking for a new home. And they were killed because the galaxy decided we had grown too large. She let the words settle. For 80 years we have been part of the Galactic Concord. For 80 years we have followed their rules. We have smiled at their insults. We have accepted their limitations. We have bent our knees and bowed our heads because we believed that peace was worth any price. Her voice hardened. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Concord does not want peace. They want submission. They do not see us as partners. They see us as pets, to be controlled and contained and put down when we become inconvenient. Oh. She gripped the podium. Lord Morith called us insects. He laughed as he said it. 1,000 species watched and laughed with him. The murmurs became angry voices. Gina raised her hand, and silence returned. I know what many of you are thinking. What can we do? The Concord has thousands of ships. They have technology we cannot match. They have numbers we cannot fight. She paused. That is what they believe. That is what we wanted them to believe. She pressed a button, and the screen behind her changed. It showed shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. It showed fleets of warships painted black against the darkness of space. It showed weapons that glowed with strange light. For 40 years we have been preparing, not for war, but for the day when war would be forced upon us. In secret shipyards across human space, we have built a fleet 3 times larger than anyone knows. We have developed weapons the galaxy has never seen. We have trained soldiers who will never surrender. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions. Some cheered. Some looked terrified. General Choi Sunwoo stepped forward and spoke. Operation Iron Wake is our war doctrine. It calls for simultaneous strikes on all major Concord powers. We will not fight a defensive war. We will not wait for them to come to us. We will bring fire to their worlds before they even know we have left ours. The screen changed again, showing a strange device that looked like a black sphere covered in glowing lines.
Ow.
This is Voidbreaker technology, Sunwoo continued. Developed by Dr. Imsora and her team, these devices can collapse hyperspace lanes, cutting off entire star systems from the rest of the galaxy. We can trap enemy fleets. We can isolate enemy worlds. We can break their empire into pieces they cannot reconnect. Silence fell over the chamber. The representatives stared at the screen with wide eyes. President Beak Gina spoke again. I did not want this. None of us wanted this. We wanted to explore the stars in peace. We wanted to be part of something greater than ourselves. But the galaxy has made its choice. They have chosen to see us as enemies. They have chosen to kill our children and laugh about it. Her eyes blazed. So we will show them what enemies we can be. She turned to face the cameras that would broadcast her words across the galaxy. This message is for every species of the Galactic Concord. For 80 years, we extended our hand in friendship. You spat on it. You killed our children and called us insects. We asked for nothing but respect. You gave us contempt. She took a breath. So be it. As of this moment, the United Earth Federation formally declares war on the Galactic Concord. All diplomatic ties are severed. All treaties are void. Humanity stands alone, and we will make you remember why you should have feared us. She ended the transmission. For a long moment, no one in the chamber moved. Then, slowly, one representative stood and began to clap. Then another. Then another. Soon, the entire parliament was on its feet, applauding and shouting and crying. They were not cheering for war. They were cheering because for the first time in 80 years, humanity was standing up. They were cheering because they were done being afraid. General Choi Sun-woo leaned close to the president. It is done. There is no going back now. Gina watched her people and felt the weight of what she had started. Millions would die. Worlds would burn. History would remember this moment forever. No, she said quietly. There is no going back. There is only forward. And God help anyone who stands in our way. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, aliens watched the broadcast in shock. Some laughed, thinking it was a bluff. Some scrambled to check their intelligence reports. Some began to pray. On the Valori homeworld, Lord Morith watched with narrowed eyes. Fools, he muttered. Brave, stupid fools. We will crush them in 30 rotations. But deep in his chest, something cold and unfamiliar was beginning to grow. He did not recognize it yet, but soon he would learn its name. It was doubt. The emergency session of the Galactic Concord began in chaos and ended in something worse. Something that looked like confidence, but smelled like fear. Lord Morith stood at the center of the grand chamber, his forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembled species. His silver skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his black eyes showed nothing but contempt. Let me be clear, he said, his voice booming through the chamber. Humanity has declared war on the entire Concord. This is not a threat. It is a joke. A small, primitive species with a handful of ships thinks it can challenge the combined might of 1,000 civilizations. He laughed, and many in the chamber laughed with him. They have signed their own death warrant. Archon Salatha, the mantis-like leader of the Kreth Assembly, clicked his metal mandibles in agreement. The Valori Dominion has 900 warships. The Kreth Assembly has 600. Together with our allies, we command over 3,000 vessels. Human intelligence suggests they have perhaps 200. His compound eyes glittered. This war will last less than one cycle. Their worlds will burn, and their species will learn its place. Cheers rose from the platforms. Representatives from dozens of species shouted their support. The mood was almost festive. How dare these humans challenge them? How dare they forget their position in the galaxy? But not everyone was cheering. In a quiet corner of the chamber, Keeper Nollis of the Haven Collective sat motionless beneath his hooded cloak. His 6 golden eyes watched the celebration with growing unease. He was old, older than most species in the Concord. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched confident civilizations march to their doom. And he had studied humans. When the cheering faded, his voice was soft, but something about it made others listen. May I speak? He asked. Lord Moroth waved a dismissive hand. Of course, Keeper. Share your wisdom with us. Nollis moved to the center platform. His movements were slow and careful, like an old man walking on thin ice. I have watched humanity for 80 years, he began. I have read their history. I have studied their wars. And I must warn you, all of you, that you do not understand what you are facing. Archon Salath made a sound like grinding metal. They are primates with primitive weapons. What is there to understand? Everything. Nollis turned his golden eyes to the Kreth leader. Tell me, Archon, do you know what happened on Earth 500 years ago? There was a nation called Korea, a small nation, surrounded by larger, more powerful neighbors. Again and again, they were invaded. Again and again, they were told they would be conquered, but they never surrendered. They fought with whatever they had, rocks and sticks and fire and blood, and they survived. That is who humans are. He turned to face the whole chamber. Humans are not like us. They do not accept defeat. They do not submit. When they are cornered, when they are hurt, when their children are killed, they do not become afraid. They become angry. And when humans become angry, they do terrible things. His voice dropped lower. They have a phrase in their language: total war. It means they will fight until nothing is left. Not your armies. Not your cities. Not your people. Nothing. Lord Morith snorted. Primitive nonsense. They have 200 ships against 3,000. Anger does not win wars. Numbers win wars. Do they have 200 ships? Nahlis asked quietly. Are you certain? For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Morith's face. Our intelligence is clear. Your intelligence comes from what humans chose to show you. For 80 years, they have smiled and bowed and pretended to be weak. Have you ever wondered why? Have you ever wondered what they might be hiding? The chamber was silent. Hush. I have seen their history of war, Nahlis continued. I have seen what they did to each other before they reached the stars. They developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash of light. They created poisons that could kill millions with a single breath. They burned forests and boiled oceans and turned their own world into a wasteland, and they kept fighting anyway. His golden eyes swept across the gathered aliens. And you think you have pushed them to war? I tell you now, you have woken something that should have been left sleeping. Silence hung over the chamber like a shroud. Then Lord Morith laughed again, but this time, it sounded forced. Enough of this fear-mongering, keeper. Humans are many things, but they are not gods. They will fall like all others who have challenged the Concord. He turned to the assembly. Prepare your fleets. We will end this quickly and show the galaxy what happens to species that forget their place. The cheering resumed, but it was quieter than before. Doubt had been planted, and doubt grows in darkness. Keeper Nahlis returned to his seat. He did not speak again. There was nothing more to say. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the neutral species were already moving. The Tirani merchants, traders who had survived 1,000 wars by running from all of them, were packing their stations and fleeing. Their cargo ships streamed away from human space like water fleeing a coming storm. The Dwell monks, philosophers who had watched the galaxy for 10,000 years, sent a single message to their home temples: prepare the archives. History is about to change. And in hidden corners of space, intelligence officers from a dozen species were receiving reports that did not make sense. The Kreth received word that human ships had been spotted in 3 different sectors simultaneously. Ships that were not in any database. Ships that were painted black and moved without making a sound. The Velour detected strange energy readings near their border stations, readings that matched no known technology, readings that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Archon Salaith called an emergency meeting with his military commanders. Our scouts report human fleet movements in 17 sectors, an officer told him. But the numbers are impossible. They cannot have that many ships. Then your scouts are wrong, Salaith hissed. They are not wrong, Archon. They are dead. All 17 scout groups have gone silent in the last 6 hours. Salaith felt something cold crawled down his metal spine. He had fought many wars. He had never lost a scout group. Now he had lost 17. On the Valori homeworld, Lord Morith received his own reports. He read them 3 times, each time hoping the numbers would change. They did not. This is not possible, he muttered. They are farmers and merchants. Where did they get so many ships? Where did they hide them? His advisor, a nervous young Valori named Tarek, spoke carefully. My lord, perhaps Keeper Nahlis was right. Perhaps we should seek a peaceful resolution before this goes further. Morith's hand shot out and grabbed Tarek by the throat. There will be no peace, he snarled. We are the Valori Dominion. We do not surrender to insects. He released the advisor and turned to stare out at the stars. Ready, my fleet. If humans want war, we will give them war. But as he watched the darkness of space, Lord Morith could not shake the feeling that Something was watching him back. Something patient, something angry, something human. And in that moment, for the first time in his long and proud life, Lord Morath felt afraid. The attack came at 0400 Galactic Standard Time. When the stars were quiet and the enemy was sleeping, Admiral Parkte stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable, and watched 17 screens showing 17 different battlefields. His face was calm, but his heart was pounding like a war drum. This was the moment. After 40 years of preparation, 40 years of hiding, humanity was finally showing its true face. "All fleets report ready," said his communications officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Kang Yuri, awaiting your command. Admiral Parkte looked at the screens. He saw the Velori fortress world of the Mar Prime, surrounded by defense stations and patrol ships. He saw Kreth supply depots floating in asteroid fields. He saw hyperspace lanes that connected the enemy's empire like blood vessels. In a few moments, he would cut those vessels, and the enemy would bleed. "Begin Operation Iron Wake," he said. Across the galaxy, human ships came out of hiding. They rose from asteroid fields. They emerged from the shadows of gas giants. They appeared in places the enemy thought were empty. 800 capital ships. 3,000 support vessels. Enough firepower to burn worlds. The Concord had expected one attack. They had prepared for one front. They got 17 on the Mar Prime. The Valerie High Command received the first reports of human ships appearing at the edge of their system. Admiral Korath, commander of the defense fleet, laughed when he heard the numbers. 200 ships, he said. "Against our fortress? Send the patrol wings. Destroy them." But then the next report came, and the next, and the next. More human ships were appearing. Not 200, 400, 600, 800. They kept coming, pouring out of hyperspace like water from a broken dam. Ships of every size, painted black against the stars, moving in perfect formation. Admiral Korath stopped laughing. "That is impossible," he whispered. "Where did they come from? How did they hide so many?" He never got his answer. Admiral Parkte led the first assault fleet straight into the heart of the Velori defense line. His ships did not slow down. They did not hesitate. They charged forward with weapons blazing, and the Velori ships shattered like glass before a hammer. "Target their command ships," Parkte ordered. "Break their coordination. Make them blind." Captain Kong Minho, commanding the stealth carrier Dokdo's Vengeance, was already moving. His ship was smaller than the others, designed to slip through defenses unseen. Inside its belly, it carried something far more dangerous than missiles. "Voidbreaker deployment in 30 seconds, his tactical officer commander Yunari reported. Her fingers danced across her console, calculating angles and distances. "Target hyperspace lanes confirmed." 3 lanes, all leading to Velori reinforcement fleets. Minho watched the battle unfold around him. Human ships were cutting through the Velori like a knife through paper. But he knew reinforcements were coming. Hundreds of Valori warships were racing through hyperspace to defend their fortress world. They would never arrive. "Deploy Voidbreakers," he ordered. 3 black spheres launched from his ship and disappeared into the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe itself seemed to scream. The hyperspace lanes collapsed. Space twisted and folded in ways that should not be possible. The 3 corridors that connected the Mar Prime to the rest of the Velori Empire simply ceased to exist. 200 Velori warships, traveling through those lanes, were ripped apart by forces they could not understand. They did not die in battle. They died in transit, crushed by the death of hyperspace itself. Admiral Korath received the report with shaking hands. "The reinforcements, they are gone. All of them. The lanes they are gone." "How?" his officer asked. "How is this possible?" "I do not know." Korath looked at his screens, showing human ships advancing on his fortress. He was alone, cut off, surrounded by enemies he had thought were weak. "I do not know." On his bridge, Parkte allowed himself a small smile. "Lanes are down," he said. "The Mar Prime is isolated. Continue the advance." The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and death and the screaming of metal. When it was over, the Velary fortress world had surrendered. 60% of their defense fleet was destroyed. The rest had fled into the darkness. It's too broken to fight. But the Mar Prime was only one battlefield. Across the galaxy, the story was the same. Human fleets struck the Kreth Assembly's supply depots and burned them to ash. They attacked communication stations and left the enemy deaf and blind. They appeared where no one expected them and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Unari coordinated the drone swarms. Thousands of unmanned weapons that moved like a single mind. The Concord had dismissed drone technology as primitive. They had been wrong. The drones were everywhere, filling space with fire, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. On the Kreth homeworld, Archon Salaith watched the reports come in and felt his world crumbling. This cannot be happening, he said. They were farmers. They were traders. They were nothing. They were never nothing, his advisor said quietly. We just could not see what they were. Within 72 hours, humanity had crippled 40% of the Concord's combined fleet. Hyperspace lanes across enemy space were collapsed, trapping ships and isolating worlds. Supply lines were cut. Communication networks were dark. The great Galactic Concord, which had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, was falling apart. On the Velary homeworld, Lord Moreth sat alone in his chambers. The screens around him showed destruction and defeat. His proud fleet was scattered. His fortress worlds were burning. His allies were screaming for help he could not send. A message arrived from the human president, Beak Gina. "You called us insects," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You laughed when we asked for respect. You killed our children and thought there would be no consequences." She paused. "Now you know the truth. We are not insects. We are humanity, and we have only begun to fight." The message ended. Lord Moreth stared at the blank screen for a long time. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who had finally understood a terrible joke. "We destroyed ourselves," he whispered. "We poked the sleeping beast. We thought we were strong," shook his head. "We were fools." Outside his window, the stars were burning. Ships were dying. Empires were falling, and somewhere in the darkness, Admiral Parktay was planning his next move. The war was not over, but its ending was no longer in doubt. 6 months after the first shot was fired, the war was over. Not because humanity had destroyed its enemies, though it could have. Not because the galaxy had nothing left to fight with, though that was nearly true. The war ended because humanity chose to stop. The grand chamber of the Galactic Concord looked different now. Half the plat. Forms were empty. Some species had surrendered. Some had fled. Some no longer existed. The crystal ceiling was cracked, damaged by a battle that had raged in orbit above. Through the cracks, the stars looked cold and distant. President Beak Gina walked into the chamber with her head held high. She wore no crown, no royal robes, just a simple black suit and the weight of 100 billion lives on her shoulders. Behind her walked Admiral Parktay, General Choi Soon-woo, and Ambassador Yoon Hannah. Hannah had returned to the place where she had been laughed at. She had returned to the place where she had dropped her diplomatic sash and walked away. But she did not walk away today. The remaining representatives watched in silence. As the humans took their positions at the center of the chamber, there was no laughter now. There was no contempt. There was only fear and respect, the two emotions that looked so similar from a distance. Lord Moreth was there, standing on a platform far lower than his old one. His silver skin had lost its shine. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His black eyes, once so full of pride, were empty. When President Beak spoke, her voice filled the chamber like thunder. 6 months ago, this Concord declared humanity to be insects. 6 months ago, you killed our children and celebrated. 6 months ago, you thought you were gods and we were nothing. She paused. Today, the Velary Dominion has fallen. The Kreth assembly has shattered into 100 pieces. 12 species have pledged allegiance to Earth. The Galactic Concord, as it existed for 10,000 years, is dead.
Ow.
No one spoke. No one moved. We could have destroyed you all, Gina continued. We had the ships. We had the weapons. We had every reason. But we did not. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of aliens who had once mocked her kind. Because that is not who we are. We wanted peace. We wanted respect. We wanted to be part of something greater than ourselves. You denied us that. You forced us to show you what we are capable of. But we will not become the monsters you believed us to be. She gestured to Admiral Park Tae, who stepped forward. Humanity offers terms, Park Tae said. His voice was tired. He had fought for 6 months without rest, and the victory tasted like ash in his mouth. The Galactic Concord will be dissolved. In its place, a new organization will be formed, the Galactic Union. All species will have equal voices. No species will be called lesser. No species will be contained. And humanity will hold veto power over any resolution that threatens the safety of any member world. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Veto power. Humanity would be the guardian of the galaxy, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. These are not negotiations, General Choi Sun-woo added. His scarred face showed no emotion. These are terms. You will accept them, or the war will continue until there is no one left to accept anything. Silence stretched across the chamber. Then, slowly, Lord Morith stepped down from his platform. He walked to the center of the chamber where Hannah stood. His movements were slow, like a man walking to his own funeral. He stopped in front of her. For a long moment, they stared at each other. The alien who had called her people insects, the human who had returned to watch him kneel. Lord Morith lowered himself to his knees. The Valori Dominion accepts these terms, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. We surrender. One by one, other representatives stepped forward. The Kreth fragments. The Turani merchants. The Dwell monks, species that had laughed at humanity. Species that had ignored humanity. Species that had fought and lost. They all knelt. They all accepted. When it was done, Hannah looked at Lord Morith. There was no hatred in her eyes. Only cold, quiet resolve. We never wanted war, she said. We wanted respect. You forced our hand. Remember that when you teach your children what happened here. Remember that we offered friendship first. Remember that you chose to spit on it. She turned and walked away. Later, in a quiet corridor of the chamber, Keeper Nahus approached Admiral Park Tae. The old alien moved slowly, his 6 golden eyes dim with age and sorrow. Admiral Nahus said, May I ask you something? Park Tae nodded. In the final battle for our homeworld, your fleet surrounded us completely. Your Voidbreaker devices had cut off all escape. We were defenseless. Nahus paused. Why did you stop? Why did you not destroy us? Park Tae was silent for a long moment. He thought of the battles he had fought, the ships he had destroyed, the lives he had taken. He thought of the Valerie colony world where human soldiers had found hospitals full of sick children. He thought of the order he had given to protect those children, even though their parents had killed human children 6 months before. You asked if we could have destroyed you all, Park Tae said finally. The answer is yes. We had the power. We had the anger. We had every right. He turned to face the old alien. But we are not you. Nahus stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. Perhaps, he said softly, you are better than us. Perhaps you always were. The ceremony ended. The treaties were signed. The Galactic Union was born. Humanity took its seat at the head of the table, and the galaxy watched in silence. On a small colony world at the edge of human space, a little girl named Park Somi looked up at the stars. She was 7 years old, with curious eyes and 1,000 questions. Her mother, Oyunji, stood beside her. Yoonji had been a soldier in the war. She had seen things that would give her nightmares for the rest of her life. But tonight, she held her daughter's hand and tried to feel hope. Mom, Somi asked. Are we the good guys? Yanji looked at the stars. She thought of all the lives lost. She thought of all the lives saved. She thought of the aliens who had called them insects, and the aliens who had knelt before them. Were they the good guys? She did not know. Perhaps no one was. Perhaps everyone was just trying to survive, to protect what they loved, to find their place in a universe that did not care about good or bad. But she knew one thing. They had tried to be. We try to be, she whispered, pulling her daughter close. We always try to be. Above them the stars burned on, cold and eternal. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. And somewhere in the halls of the new Galactic Union, the future was being written. It would be a future shaped by human hands, whether that was a blessing or a curse. Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the galaxy would never laugh at humanity again.